right, let's switch gears now and bring in our next guest. Joining me, I'm very pleased to say, is Howe Ng, who's the Chief Strategy Officer, Forge Global. Thanks so much, Howie, for joining me today. All right, so we're gearing up for what is going to be a very exciting IPO market in 2026. OpenAI, SpaceX, what are your expectations? What are the timelines? What do you think is going to happen here? Which one are you most excited about?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I think the IPO pipeline for 2026 that we're tracking right now is super interesting because we're not seeing a concentrated sectors or concentrated sets of themes. We're seeing a cross-sectional set of companies, including AI, consumer, crypto, logistic, and so forth, are all coming into the pipeline. Obviously, you have the big ones such as the SpaceX or the SpaceX now plus XAI IPO, OpenAI, and Anthropic. So the market continues to be led by these really, really big IPOs, and they're actually looking to join the public market potentially just right into the trillion-dollar clubs, like the Max 7 names that you actually have in the public market.
You know, Howie, we've been watching this brutal tech sell-off recently, particularly in some of the software names. I'm just wondering, you know, even though these companies are throwing out some pretty eye-watering CapEx numbers, you know, like Microsoft and Alphabet, we have seen this pullback. I mean, the worst two-day performance since October. We continue to see them under pressure today. This is a theme that we've been watching as money has been rotating out of some of these high-flying tech names into other parts of the market, like the real economy. I mean, staples have been having a very good start to the year. I'm just wondering, with that combined with the Jensen Huang drama over OpenAI and the questions over all this CapEx, do you think that has any threat to sort of undermine the valuations here of these companies that are looking to go public?
It is really too early to tell at this point because the private market funding continues to be robust. We're seeing private market funding that companies that are not graduating into the IPO pipeline continue to get really, really good valuation. But I do think, like, in terms of this market, aside from the macroeconomic, because I do think a lot of the swings right now is due to macroeconomic factors, interest rates, and that sort of thing. I do think, you know, when you think about the two really big AI companies, right, the two really big IPO potential candidates right now, one is actually not an AI company, although Elon just integrated XAI into SpaceX. So one is really SpaceX exploration plus a bit of AI. And then the other one is OpenAI Anthropic. So I think it really could test the investor demand because we're talking about a lot of funding. So part of it is to see which one goes public first and what is the investor demand and how much dry powder is left.
Okay, yes, we will be watching. I just want to ask you about, obviously, the private market firms and, you know, with respect to what we've seen in the software sell-off, you know, in recent weeks and months. I mean, no doubt this has accelerated this week with all of these concerns around the vibe coding and Anthropic launching some new tools. And that seemed to have really put the cherry on top of the icing of the cake this week with you know, the more sort of broad pullback that we've seen. You know, people are calling it the SaaS apocalypse, Loanageddon. How are you seeing that spilling over into sort of the finance software business in the private market?
We haven't really seen any kind of a major impact just yet because traditionally there's a lead lag effect. So it probably has about 3 to 6 months of public market leading before you see the impact on the private market side. What I would say, though, is that we continue to see funding level in 2025 to be very, very robust, almost at a 2021 level. Now, you could call that potentially there's a bubble because 2021 was a bubble in the private market, or you can actually think about that there's actually more capital, the private market is more accessible now these days that you could actually sustain that kind of growth. So, you know, it'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it certainly will be. You know, as far as the alternative asset class is concerned, I mean, you know, this is becoming a lot more popular. I'm just wondering what themes you're watching this year in particular that might be different to, say, last year even.
Yeah, so for the VC-backed space, I think the theme here, the theme that is going to be continue on, I think AI's, you know, AI's public and private is going to be a secular theme. But what is really interesting is that there's a bunch of non-AI companies. It's similar to the broadening story that, you know, that people have in the public market where the 493 stocks might actually do better. You are observing the same trend. So the non-AI company was actually performing on average 40+% last year that we're observing from the cohorts that we are tracking. So that actually outperformed the public market indices. So we are seeing a broadening of performance outside of AI and some of these really hot themes. And that is a very encouraging sign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been speaking to some of the private markets guys, and they have also pointed that out to me. It's the non-AI companies that are seeing a lot of traction here, but then they're non-AI companies that are sort of been acting as a backdoor or an AI adjacent type play, more of your sort of picks and shovels kind of trade as well, as far as some of that exposure to AI, but, you know, perhaps in utilities or other infrastructure areas. Howe, we've got to leave it there, but thanks so much for your time. Really fascinating chat for us this morning. Howe Ng there, the Chief Strategy Officer at Forge Global.